he was shouting at it, saying, "Turn on! On! On!"
And Patrick had to help me since it was too technical for an old guy like me. Actually, I got it done all myself. All right, there it is. All right, Toastmasters and all these guests, thank you for coming tonight. I am kind of an organized guy. I do like to be prepared. You probably see me with this old-fashioned planner, which I've used for 25 years probably. I organize my life with this thing, so I'm always prepared. But before I became a Toastmaster about 2.5 years ago, I was often woefully unprepared when I had to present or give speeches in front of an audience. A lot of the problems was I didn't know how to prepare. And that's what Toastmasters can do for you. It can teach you how to prepare. And these speeches, the Better Speakers series, the one that I'm giving tonight, and Vince and Carrie have given over the past couple months, are here to help you become prepared. As I talk about this, I'm going to refer to the speech I gave in Phoenix a couple weeks ago. You might be tired of me talking about it, but I used this speech, or this presentation, to help me prepare for the speech I gave in Phoenix. It was for about 200 people, mostly Wells Fargo people, Wells Fargo risk management professionals. There was a few outside folks come in to give presentations, but it was at a place I'd never been before. And as I went through this presentation deck, because I chose this before I was going down to Phoenix, I said, this has some good ideas in it. So I emailed the meeting organizer and asked all kinds of questions. I'll tell you some of the questions that I asked. When I was going to Phoenix, because I wasn't familiar with the room, I emailed the organizer and asked some questions. Because I wanted to know, what's the audience going to look like? How are they going to be set up? How am I going to stand in front of the room? What's that going to look like? Because I was starting to think about this presentation, and I've given 20-some speeches here. I'm pretty comfortable standing in this room in front of this audience that I'm familiar with. I was getting a little bit nervous about giving that speech in front of a big audience. So this gave me all kinds of great ideas that I never would have thought of before. So some of the first questions that I asked, do I need to come early? They weren't really communicating with me at all, and talk to you about where do I stand, and how are they going to cue me up to come up in front. And once again, I asked some questions about what the room, what it looked like. They actually sent me a picture, which really helped. I had some questions about, am I going to be standing up high, or are you just going to be at the same level with everybody? All this stuff became really important for me to know, because when I practice, it's really nice to be able to visualize what the room's going to be like, and to practice with the tools that you're going to be able to use. I'm going to talk about some of those. One being the microphone. Sometimes you'll see people give speeches, they'll have a lectern or a podium with a fixed mic. I thought that might be the case. Or sometimes you have, sort of the microphones, the sticks you have to carry around, or sometimes you have the wireless mics that you clip onto your shirt. And it was kind of nice to know what that was going to be like. I had the wireless kind that clipped on my shirt, because then I knew I had to practice with, nothing in my hands. That makes a difference. Ask questions about the temperature. Is this room normally fairly warm? If you get a bunch of people in there, or it's going to be cold? Makes a difference in what you're going to wear. I guess I kind of did the traditional recommendation and dress in layers. So I had a jacket that I could take off if it was hot, but it was comfortable. And then ask if people are going to be coming in and out of the room, or if they're going to close the doors when you speak. Not that it really matters, but if people are going to be coming in and out of the room, it's good to know ahead of time, because it won't throw you off your game if they start walking around the back. You just kind of be prepared for it. visual aids were a big question for me, because I knew I needed to do a PowerPoint, because they asked for the PowerPoint about 10 days in advance. But I didn't know how it was going to be presented. You know, I was hoping they'd put it up on the big screen, which they did, behind me. But I didn't know if there was going to be like a monitor in front of me where I could see what screen I'm on. I didn't know if I was going to have to, use the PC and flip it myself, or there's going to be somebody in the corner that's going to flip it for me, or have a little clicker that I could flip it for me. Once again, they said, well, you'll have a little clicker, it'll be remote. Once again, that was nice to know ahead of time, because you're nervous enough, and just to know how things are going to work. Much better. So all these things that I talked to you about, I hadn't even thought about until I got this deck. So it was really handy for me to be queued up to give a educational speech and give a preparation and practice speech. So I just kind of flipped through this. I'll worry about this when I get back from Phoenix. I started seeing these slides. Oh, this might be good stuff to know. So it was really helpful for me. What I thought this was all going to be about is rehearsing the speech. And this is why I chose this, and why this is important to me, is because this is where I needed the most work. This is really why I came to Toastmasters, is to figure out how to prepare, how to practice for a speech. As I said, I've been here about 2.5 years. I think I've given 20 manual speeches. And your first 10 are the Competent Communicator manual. You probably all have that. For the first 10 speeches that I gave here, I was pretty tight with my speaker notes. I always use the lectern, always have my speaker notes on there. Kind of depending on the topic and how well I knew it, I would refer to the notes more or less. But I was always kind of scared to come up here without my speaker notes. Toastmasters taught me how to speak without using speaker notes. And the one that really struck home with me was I had the storytelling manual. That was, I think, the first advanced manual that I went through. And one of the speeches that you need to give in the storytelling manual, I think it's 10 to 12 minutes. You need to pick a story that's printed, and not just tell a story about yourself, and give it. And one of the top objectives is to give the speech without notes. And I read that, and I thought to myself, how am I going to speak for 10 to 12 minutes, recite a story without notes? Well, the Toastmasters manual told me how to do it. I thought I was going to have to print out the story, memorize the story word for word, and I just didn't know how I could memorize 3 pages or whatever, word for word and not screw up. But what the Toastmasters book told me to do, and I use this really for all my speeches now, is don't worry about memorizing your speech word for word. Just think about the main ideas in the story, and how I like to visualize and picture the scenes of the story, scene after scene after scene, and just tell the audience about what you're seeing, about the scenes that progress within the story. So that's how I prepare for speeches now. I do write it down first. So the first thing that I do is write down my speech how I think I want to say it, kind of word for word. And then I find that if I do that like the week before, I need to give the speech. And then just practice once a day from the week before until I need to give the speech. And then I'm probably putting 2 hours into a speech, maybe an hour to get the idea, to write it down, and then just maybe 10 minutes a day for the next week. I got it down. I can go without the speech, without bringing my notes up. And so that's what it's talking about. Practice the ideas, not the words. Do the mental draft. And what you find, what you find when you do that, it was the same way I did it for my speech in Phoenix. It was 30 minutes, it was longer, it was a long speech. So first thing I did is I put down my speaker notes for each slide. I did that about a week in advance. I need to have it 10 days in advance. I had to have the slides ready to go. I had to share with the meeting organizer. What I did is I wrote it down. I started practicing because I knew what I needed to do to prepare. So I wasn't shaking in my boots thinking, I have to give a 30-minute speech. How am I going to do that? Because I've done this 20 times here at Toastmasters. And what I do is the first couple times I do go in a room kind of simulate what my presentation environment's going to be and practice it. And I kind of read it along. But about the third day in, I put the notes aside, I just talk through what I want to say. And it's a little bit rough at first, but each time you go from the written draft to speaking it out loud a couple times to using it, giving the speech without the notes, the speech gets better and better. And for me, by the 7th day, I'm ready to go. Actually, for this speech, I didn't start till Saturday, but I had to do a little remediating, a little extra practice. The last thing to think about, which once again helped me in Phoenix, was the day of your speech. I'm a coffee drinker, so every morning I like to have a cup of coffee or two to get me rolling. But my speech in Phoenix, I was speaking at 1 at lunch. And when I have big presentations or speeches, I don't drink coffee in the morning. I have enough adrenaline kind of pumping through my blood. I don't want to be more nervous than I already am. Another thing that is really helpful is, we call it mental rehearsal. I call it positive self-talk. If you're prepared, you need to tell yourself, I'm ready. Just tell yourself, you're ready, I can do this. I was a little bit nervous, but I do my little positive self-talk. And the other thing to tell yourself is that you are the expert on the topic. If you've written your speech, if you've prepared your speech, you know more about that speech than anybody else in the room. So you are the expert on the topic. And just go up there and deliver. And I don't agree with this. I think there's no such thing as good luck with giving a presentation. You're not going to get lucky and deliver a good presentation. The Toastmasters will give you the tools to prepare for a presentation, but you need to do the work. You need to prepare and you need to practice.